I've been in that situation many times. There's that vague vision. I'm trying to somehow make that vague vision into a reality. And then the CEO comes back with again, the vague vision. Then now from another angle, everything, all the roadmap, everything, you just literally goes to the trash right away.
More startup the environment you're in, the harder this is. Your CEO went on a kite surfing vacation and has plenty of ideas afterward. Even give you the call and say I have this amazing idea. Could you start working on it right away? The only way to escape that is really being scientific in your approach to some extent. If we not kill 14 out of 15 ideas, then we're basically not doing our job properly. That's the important conversation. Being a little stubborn and say no, it sounds like a stupid idea.
In your experience, what separates a good product manager from the one who's truly ready to lead others?
You want product people to be
Hey folks, welcome to another podcast episode of Product Founder. Today we have Petra. I'm super excited to talk to you. It's been a long time that I would love to have you on the podcast.
Yay, thanks so much for inviting me. Excited.
Today's guest, Petra Wille, is an independent product leadership coach and the author of Strong Product People and the recently released Strong Product Communities. She's been helping product teams boost their skill sets and product leaders develop their teams and themselves. Alongside, Petra co-organizes Product at Heart in Hamburg, Germany. In this episode, we will talk about the challenges and nuances of moving from product manager to product leader, emphasizing the need for clarity, coaching, and key leadership skills. She also shares insights on personality traits, the evolving role of AI, and how to build a supportive, innovative product culture.
I want to ask you, what do you think most companies get wrong when they promote someone from product manager to a product leader?
Oh, that's an easy first question. I think in short, companies underestimate the support new product leadership people usually need. And they just think it's a natural thing for them to be a junior product manager, becoming a senior product manager, and then ultimately maybe a product team lead or something like that. Or even worse, directly head of product for a new product area or something like that. And the leader themselves and the organization oftentimes underestimate how different the role usually is. Because then you're stepping into a role where you ultimately have some responsibility, various responsibilities. The one for providing people with directional clarity so that everybody understands where the organization is headed product-wise and how people could make decisions on behalf of the organization and the users out there in the best possible way. That, for example, is a hard one. And then another hard one is everybody underestimates the people business of the product leadership role, right? To some extent, because we already think we understood product management is people business. So we think product managers are naturally good already in all of that political navigation, having empathy towards all the employees, all these kind of things. But it's a different level if you're in a leadership position. Yeah, and then oftentimes leaders lack structure of what good looks like and help for getting there and doing, deliberate upskilling for the leadership position.
Let's pause here for a second. The other day, I was looking into our channel analytics and I noticed many of you guys are watching a lot of our episodes, but not yet subscribed to our YouTube page or Spotify. I will ask you as a favor. Please support us by subscribing to our YouTube page and Spotify page, and I will promise you I will do everything in my power to make each episode better and better. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. For me, one of the things I've seen is sometimes when they promote a product manager to a higher ranking position, somehow some of the responsibilities that previously the same product manager had will still be with him. Even though he moved. So then he's in a very mixed up situation between, I want to migrate and switch to be a more leader, maybe high level, and just spend more time with the execs. But at the same time, I'm still maybe writing a few tasks.
Yeah, but there are multiple reasons for that. I see that happen a lot as well. And there are multiple reasons for that. One is the company just can't afford a full-time product leadership person because, let's face it, if you have 3 product managers, maybe not a full-time role. It depends on what the company currently is and at what stage they are in. But then sometimes you have this two-folded roles where one of the 3 product managers to some extent fulfills the product leadership role for the other two as well, maybe doing some coaching, personal development, or trying to do this product strategy, directional clarity piece a bit more. I think that is fine. But as soon as you have, I would say, 5 to 6 people directly line managing, then things get super messy. And then definitely you will not be able to, on the side, manage your former product team and keep them busy with meaningful work to do. So that's just impossible. And then the companies have at some point make the commitment to hire somebody new into this product management role. I think as long as it's a transition, it could be okay-ish for, let's say, 3 months, 6 months. I think then it's fine because, let's face reality, you cannot always find skilled people immediately. But then you still need to plan further onboarding in the leadership role, and you need to plan the handover to the newly to be hired product manager. So that puts even more stress on your new product leadership person. So that's oftentimes people are super overwhelmed in that role and transition period.
In your experience, what separates a good product manager from the one who's truly ready to lead others?
That is really a personality thing to some extent, because there are people out there that are willing to make the jump way before they're ready and then learning on the job and really heads down, just like run the sponge boat, figuring things out as they go. And then there are others that want to upskill themselves ahead of time and are only willing to make the jump and accept the promotion once they feel ready to some extent. And then there are ones that never feel ready, always have the ambition to become a product leader at some time, read all the books, took all the courses, and still would refuse the promotion. So I think it's a bit of a personality thing. But there are several things that I would always people to recommend to learn before they make the jump. One of it, for example, is being able to provide people with good, actionable, sometimes even critical feedback, because this performance conversations is something that you're always having in a leadership role, right? And you can really kind of upskill on that competency way before you get into the leadership role. So you can do this with your product team. You can do this with peers. You can ask them if they would be willing for peer review sessions, peer feedback sessions. I think that's definitely something that people could learn and practice before they go into the leadership role. And then it's really this, I think I already said directional clarity 1 million times, but this is really an important thing in product management and even more in product leadership. So is everybody on your team clear about what the product is you're working on, why you're working on that product, what the user groups are for that product, how you would measure success for any decision that you make in the next few weeks for that product. So all these things is your storytelling where it should be. I just recently had a conversation with the founder. I basically invested 3 calls to understand what they're planning to do with the product and the company, and I couldn't figure it out. And this is then usually to blame on the storytelling capabilities, for example. So that's definitely another skill that you could start improving now, even in your product management role, before you make the jump. And these things are making you ready for the transition.
I don't want to say whose fault is it, but I somehow feel like the problem of not having enough clarity comes from the top level, so more from the execs, because we also have a lot of people on the podcast that we talked about vision, and their vision is empowering the people on the planet. But actually, for example, maybe they're actually building a keyword. They are empowering, but it's so vague and like spiritual and stuff. What should I build as a product person? You know, if that's your vision, and what can we do?
Yeah, the thing is, I think in a product position, especially in a product leadership position, you don't have the luxury to basically sit there and say, like, if only the execs would provide me with more directional clarity. Because in doubt, you're the one that has to create it. Because what otherwise are the teams working on then, right? Then it's just like, that's the most boring job to sit in an organization where you say like, yeah, but the exits don't provide us with a clearer vision that is more crisp. So we task our teams to work on whatever. So that's not the ambition that we're here for. So in doubt, you as a product leadership person need to take it and run with it and see how far you can go. The thing is, what I can tell you, the moment you start writing something down is the moment when people will start to disagree. Even your execs will say like, this is not what we want. And then you start having the conversations, right? So it's actually something good to start somewhere, even if it's not what everybody's landing on in the future. And I really love how Martin Erickson always puts it with his decision stack. So connecting the dots sometimes is more important than come up with a brand new strategy, for example. So if you just sit down and think about, okay, if this is the company vision, no matter how broad it is, how do we bring it one level down to make it more actionable? How would we measure if we're executing towards this vision, even if it's vague, or ideally strategy, by the way? And you could always do things like, okay, but is that helping us to be clearer about our competitive edge? Does it talk about where we want to win in our market, where we want to outcompete others? That's always work that product leadership folks can do. Am I a big fan of the product management level doing it? So the actual product managers, that really depends on your company size. If it's many, many product teams, then it might make sense that there is more a portfolio strategy or something like that helpful to everybody, and they translating it down then to the teams and into the epics and themes and whatever. But yeah, I think it's not a good situation to sit there and say, like, if only the executives would provide us with more directional clarity.
I agree. I just find it super hard that I've been in that situation many times. There's that vague vision. I'm trying to somehow make that vague vision into a reality, and then we're building something, and then we validate it's being built, and then the CEO comes back with, like, again, the vague vision, and then now from another angle, and he somehow was inspired that morning that, I don't know, making a mouse is a better idea than making a keyboard, and everything, all the roadmap, everything you just build literally goes to the trash right away. So it's a little bit difficult.
Yeah, there maybe two things to add. I think more startup-y the environment you're in, the harder this is. Because the more startup-y the environment you're in is, the more these changes happen easily, and then your CEO went on a founder's kite surfing vacation and has plenty of ideas afterwards. So that's usually how it works. And that's hard, because then usually they even give you the call out of this vacation and say, like, hey, Amir, I have this amazing idea. Could you start working on it right away? The only way to escape that to some extent is really being scientific in your approach to some extent, to say, like, hey, all ideas come equal. Let's assess if there is enough business opportunity in the idea that you're having. We have this structured assessment. We always use it. It's 10 questions. We can do it together. I can do it and present it to you. And the only thing that we then decide is, okay, it looks like a good opportunity. So now let's invest in further discovery. And then I think it does make sense to upskill the executive levels, your CEO, that if we not kill 14 out of 15 ideas in this process of discovering it's a good thing to do, then we're basically not doing our job properly. Then we're limiting ourselves, we're assessing too few ideas. And if we only build what he suggests, then we're not innovating on behalf of our user. And this is, for example, that's another thing that you always underestimate when you go into a leadership position, how much time you need to spend with managing up. That's such a lot of time. And it's not only managing up, it's educating up as well, right? Yeah, and that's the important conversations to have. And sometimes it's just like being a little stubborn and say, like, nope, it sounds like a stupid idea. I talked to 5 other people in the company, and we reassess it in 3 months from now. Right now, it's not our priority, because if I compare it to the rest of the stuff that we're currently building, your idea does not outcompete them when it comes to business potential. So come back in 3 months for the next quarterly planning. A bit of stubbornness sometimes helps as well.
I think that's such a powerful thing as a product person, that know when to say yes, when to say no, and how to say no as well.
Yeah, that's, by the way, why everybody is so overly obsessing with their product operating model. Because people love a good product operating model, because what it basically does is it sells you this idea of, if only everybody in the organization would understand how we work, then these things will not happen anymore. So there will be no CEO ideas coming directly to the team. And to some extent, that's correct. So if you have this opportunity assessment, for example, that helps you say no to stupid ideas early, it does help. But it usually, not only that you have a product operating model, does avoid these kind of things to happen. So you still need, what you're saying, this talent or this experience to say no in good ways as a product person.
I know that you often talk about building strong product people. What are the signs that someone on your team is becoming one?
A strong product person. So in the book, I describe it like that. So it's personality traits and what you hire people for. That's something that you cannot train. So you want product people to be curious, for example. If somebody is not curious about the world, and everybody being in a product role knows that, so I'm curious about the world, no matter if it's flight bookings or container shipping or pharma or logistics or fintech, the more complicated things get, the more intrigued I am to understand what the process actually looks like and all these kind of things. So curiosity, for example, is a personality trait you want to hire for, or adaptability is another one, or one that I call likability or sense of humor or something like that, because it's a lot of teamwork. So you need to have these human skills as well. So if you think about what makes a good product manager, I always encourage every product leader to reflect on these personality traits that they think they would need to hire for. And then it's skills, it's know-how, it's capabilities. So know-how is stuff that you can learn in this training, and skills is stuff that you need to learn by practice. So you need to learn that on the job. And I have I call it product management wheel, which comes with these 8 buckets where you can say like, okay, is this product person good in understanding the underlying business and user problems that we're currently catering for? And the wheel goes through this entire process of creating a product. And I think product leads need to have something like that. So you need to build a compass that says like, hey, if you work in my product organization, this is how I would say you're a competent, capable, good product person. And the last part is values, where hopefully the personal values of the person have a big overlap with the company values to some extent. If there are company values, maybe you have to define them yourself for your product organization in a leadership role. But this is usually the things that I would advise leaders to reflect on. So the personality traits, then skills, capabilities, know-how, and then the values. And for skills, capabilities, know-how, there are many assessments out there for product people. I have a blog post where I collected the ones that I'm aware of, including mine. So just use one of them and then build on it for your organization. I always would recommend people to customize these kind of assessments because companies in different stages, different maturity models. Yeah, so I think you need to bring it to your reality, but this is usually what I would advise people to do. So build that compass that everybody knows what good looks like in your organization.
I really love the part you just talk about the personality traits and then sense of humor. I think this sense of humor is something almost no one really talks about. Like when you go on LinkedIn, everyone talks about like how you could be a great leader, but no one really talks about that. Can you be a fun person that people want to work with you for a whole year, even when especially that you're not just a developer working with another developer, but you're a manager who you're managing a team of 20. Like, can you actually inspire them by like kind of making the work kind of fun as well? Which
and that's
I'm not sure how many people do that.
Yeah, and that's super important. In my book, there is a list of personality traits that one could pick from, because this is actually really something that we rarely talk about. And people are unaware that you cannot train these things easily on the job, because people are either curious or they're not. Right? And people are either likable and having this great sense of humor, or they're not. Of course, you can always encourage people to make more use of their personality traits or something like that, or say like, hey, it's perfectly fine to be you in the company here. But it's not that you can have a big influence on the personality traits in a professional employer-employee relationship. So you need to hire for these things.
Last week we had a call when I joined, and it was a product that I'm basically owning, and there's a team of like 10 people. And I joined the call, and it's like kind of like a stand-up on a one time per week. We do that, and everyone's camera was off. I said, great to see you all. And then I just saw the emojis like popping, and actually like half of them actually turned on their camera. And then the whole meeting was like way more fun, and just by that joke, and everyone was laughing. Great to see you all. Like,
but
it was only my camera on.
And of course, you could encourage people like you to behave like that more often, right? But it's you either have that inside of you or you don't. And nobody wants to work with a grumpy product person all the time. It's fine if you're grumpy some days throughout the year. But in general, you should be, as you were saying, like able to motivate people, share why you're here and why you think it's an amazing product to work for. So you have to have this kind of inner purpose for the product that you're working on. And that needs to be transformed and inspiring others. Otherwise, it's a lost cause to some extent.
Yeah, absolutely. What's one behavior or mindset that almost always signals product leaders struggling?
It depends a bit on which field they're struggling. So my high level assessment is always like, do they struggle with the people side of their role, the product/directional clarity side of their role, or is it the ways of working? So is the system chaotic that everybody's working in? Does that need a bit more structure? I sometimes use a metaphor that I call the shipyard metaphor. I inherited it from Jeff Redfern from LinkedIn, which is the teams build boats and ships and vessels, but somebody has to make sure that the shipyard around these teams building the boats is in a good shape and in order. And that's definitely a leadership thing. So whenever somebody comes and complains about a leader or says like, I think they're struggling, then this is always my first assessment. So do I think it's the people side? So do they need to do more coaching? Do they need to get better in hiring? Or maybe their interview skills not where they should be? Or is it more the process part? Is there no structure in how the teams work? Is every team allowed to work super differently? And maybe there needs to be a bit more harmonization in how teams work. Or is it the product side? So there is no directional clarity, there is no good success metrics, there are no good conversations about what outcomes are we going to achieve the next 6 months. Maybe it's that the product leadership person is not able to protect their team enough from the noisy environment of the big corporate organization, for example. So this is kind of a structure that I usually use to assess that. And I cannot say that there is a predominant theme. I can say that for an organization. So I sometimes can sense, okay, this organization is not good in employee and personal development and these kind of things. So coaching is always a bit of a missing piece of the puzzle in this organization. So it's often more the culture that is missing some of these things than it is the actual leadership.
Yeah, that's true. Many product leaders feel stuck between strategy and execution. So I'm wondering, how can they reclaim time to truly coach also their team?
I think you need this idea of an ideal setup. And to me, so one drafty version of such an ideal setup description would be, I want to enable every member of my team to really make decisions on behalf of the organization and ultimately the users out there in line with what we currently think is our strategy and currently think is our vision, right? So this is actually the system that I want to create. And then I would brainstorm whatever it needs to get there. So is my team able to make decisions? Yes. Is the team able to make decisions that actually help us succeed? That is oftentimes already a no. And then I have to think about, okay, so what part of the information that I have do I need to share with my team that this changes, for example? So this is the first thing that I would always start in my coaching is, hey, what kind of working environment do you ultimately want to create as a leadership person? And then reflect on how we actually get there. Because sometimes, again, it's more structure. Sometimes it's a product operating model that is well defined and clear for everybody. Sometimes all you need is a portfolio layer because you're already working on 20 products. It's super chaotic. There is no clarity in how these products are working together and how they're even cannibalizing each other in your given user group. So all these kind of things need to be assessed and then addressed individually. So I would always encourage product leaders to have a bit of their personal backlog of projects that they run themselves to improve this shipyard, to improve the system, and to be really deliberate on the culture that they want to create. So the product culture that they want to create, because it's not something that happens accidentally. So no company that all of us have seen that are famous for good product management culture, that just did not happen and came out of the blue on a Monday morning, right? So it was always somebody who deliberately said like, hey, this is the behaviors that we want to see. This is the behaviors that we want to reward. And this is the behaviors that basically the system should, I don't know, push outside, mute, not have, all these kind of things.
You know, looking ahead, how do you think the role of product leadership will evolve in the next 5 years, especially with AI changing now how teams are working?
Yeah, I think that is, so I know it is super challenging for the product people to keep up with the recent developments. I think it will be even harder for the product leadership people because they're oftentimes a bit more detached from the daily work. And therefore, sometimes it's harder for them to find this playing field where they can easily try some of these AI things. And then for them, things remain rather abstract. They don't know yet, hopefully, where they can contribute in meaningful ways. I just recently wrote a piece on what product leaders could start doing now and preparing now. And that is, for example, think about how in the future they will provide context to the machine, basically, because this is a game that everybody needs to play, right? The more AI you use and whatever it is, if it's Gen AI in your product or if it's, I don't know, a chatbot for interviewing users or something like whatever it is, if it's your discovery processes or it's really kind of embedded in your product, no matter what, the machine needs to understand what industry you're operating in, what market you're operating in. The machine needs to know and learn about your company, about your values, about how you usually make decisions. So one thing that I would always advise product leaders to do is think about that. So how do you provide context to the machine? For example, keep a decision log. So how did you make your leadership decisions? What were the data that you collected? How did you come up with the conclusion or the decision in the end? So all these kind of things, I think, is something that product leaders could start doing. Yeah, but right now there is a lot of noise everywhere about AI. Most of it is for product people. For product leaders, it's still a bit more vague what they should be looking at. But I, on the other hand, think the human skills will be more important than ever. So because our teams need more safety and security and than ever and more stability to say like, hey, we will be fine. There's a lot of new technology coming out. We will be fine. We will adapt as long as we keep playing with it, to keep understanding what it means for our business. And currently it feels so overwhelming, but it's not. Every new technology, we still as humans figure out social media and that is around for quite some time. So I think it will be super similar with AI. So we're super early and leadership people need to make sure that the team don't get too obsessed with it, don't feel too much pressure because of it, but keep playing and keep exploring. And that's, I think, currently one of the biggest leadership challenges in product.
Also, maybe if the leadership will clarify that you're not losing your job, because when you go on LinkedIn, it's always these posts of like, this company just kicked 99% of their engineer team and then they replaced it with one AI engine that does all of the things. So I feel like when I talk about not only product people, but also a lot of this, they're just very much worried about being replaced like that, which is not so true.
Yeah, but to some extent, rightfully so, because in my coachings, I have to admit that I still meet way too many people that have not even played with it. And I think this is something that nobody actually can afford, working in tech and in product. So you need to start using it, start playing with it, start experimenting with it. And yeah, is everything already super safe? And is it clear if you're allowed to do it? Maybe not, but to some extent, you need to start to use these tools to understand what they're capable of. And you cannot leave that to your engineering team. I think that is impossible. And the same applies for product leadership people. But on the other hand, I would totally agree with you. It's just like turbulent times, and companies love to fire people in turbulent times because it is just so good for the shareholder value. And I'm not sure how much AI has a say in that, or if it's just stories that we're making up right now because everybody loves to hear AI has killed more jobs than ever. So yeah, let's see how it maybe is calming down. I bet there will be new jobs coming up, new role definitions coming up. Because, for example, this context engineering might be a thing, and context engineering might be a role that a product person can become really good at in specializing in. So, yeah, I know it's challenging, but I think there will be jobs for the people that are smart enough and curious enough and adaptable enough to work on all these things.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could give one piece of advice to every product leader listening, something that they can do tomorrow, what would that be?
So what is helpful for most of the people is understand that time for deep thinking is part of your leadership role without blocking out time in your calendar on a regular basis to really think things through. And it could be while you're walking in the park, that's perfectly fine. But you need some unoccupied time in your calendar where you actually could do the work of thinking about competition, market trends, new technology. How is that adapting your business and your organization? You need time to think about the people on your team, and is this person in the right seat? Should I put them elsewhere? Should I help them to learn something new? Should I push them a bit more? Should I protect them a bit more? So all these things, that's work. And all these things are often not visible to the rest of the organization. All these things cannot happen in a meeting. So you need time to think things through, and that need to be uninterrupted blocks of at least 2 hours on your calendar. So finding that time on a regular basis, I think that would be, the biggest tip.
Awesome. Great. We are slowly getting close to the end of this podcast episode. I know that you have a course that you're working on. So this is a time that if there's something that you would like to share with the listeners, where they can find you, if you have a newsletter, things like that.
Of course. Yeah, I have plenty of free resources on the website, by the way. So there's a free leadership newsletter coming quarterly. And the product management wheel is available for free as well. So if you look something that you could use to assess your product people, that's available on my website as well. And then I just indeed recently launched a product leadership course. It's called From Strong to Exceptional. And it is focused on the people that are in their first 1 to 2 years of a leadership journey, I would say. Still, more senior leaders would benefit from it, depending on where they are in their leadership journey as well. And it is a 52-week course. You get a really substantial email once a week. Then you can work through some of these concepts, how to explain, for example, road mapping in a coaching situation, because maybe you have done plenty of roadmaps yourself in a product management role, but now you coaching people on it, and that's a different skill. So I try to help leaders with this course to understand how certain concepts are explained, how certain concepts can be coached, and when to coach them. And you can find it on my website, which I'm sure will be in the show notes somewhere.
Absolutely. We will put the link down in the description.
Amazing.
Thank you so much for joining this podcast episode. It's been a wonderful conversation.
That was so much fun. Thanks for inviting me, Amir.
Wow, you made it till the end. I'm very proud of you. Comment down below which part of the podcast did you like the most and who should I interview next. Also, on the screen, you will see a lot of our other great episodes that you should definitely check out.